Hello and welcome to CIA News Analysis. Tomorrow's crypto news today. Huge news here in our first article. We see that New York Times reports Facebook reportedly shopping Facebook coin to crypto exchanges. And just quickly so that we can see how headlines can be used to manipulate mainstream perspective, let's just take a look at the headline that the New York Times used to tell the same story, to report the same news. They said, Facebook and Telegram are hoping to succeed where Bitcoin failed. Now, we'll talk about that later, but let's get back to the Cointelegraph article. We can see that Facebook is hoping to succeed where Bitcoin failed with its highly secretive cryptocurrency project. Citing multiple anonymous sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity, the Times pieces together the alleged contours of the project, which will reportedly aim to integrate cryptocurrency payments into its messaging services. Notably, Facebook plans to rehaul its messaging infrastructure and integrate its three wholly owned apps, WhatsApp, Messenger, and Instagram, under one canopy. As the Times notes, this would provide a future crypto token with exposure across the combined 2.7 billion who use the three services each month. A crypto-powered payment system that would operate from within a messaging system, the Times notes, is an idea being hotly pursued by several global messaging giants in Korea, in Japan, and also in Russia. According to New York Times, Facebook launched its crypto project, led by ex-PayPal president David Marcus, shortly after the Russian Telegram had sealed close to $1.7 billion in two private initial coin offering rounds for its forthcoming token and blockchain platform, Telegram Open Network. Facebook has reportedly employed over 50 engineers to develop its cryptocurrency, three unnamed sources told the New York Times. A further two told the newspaper that the importance of keeping the project under wraps is such that the relevant team has been given an office with separate keycard access to keep the details private from other employees. Notably, five sources claiming to have been briefed on the team's work allege the forthcoming coin was most likely to be a fiat-pegged stablecoin tied to the value of three different national fiat currencies rather than just one. The New York Times notes, citing the anonymous sources, that Facebook has already begun shopping the, quote, Facebook coin around to unnamed crypto exchanges. Now, obviously, big tech, Facebook, worldwide market, billions of users. This is important news. That's why we're reading so much of the articles. But I also want to go on and talk about the New York Times article so that we can touch on some different points, because what we're going to see here is that what Facebook is doing as a stablecoin that's pegged to three different fiat currencies has nothing to do with what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are doing. So we see here that some of the world's biggest internet messaging companies are hoping to succeed where cryptocurrency startups have failed. Well, here's the first thing. Is Bitcoin a cryptocurrency startup? Is there a company, is there a legal entity that exists that has the answer for things that happen to and in Bitcoin? No, there's not. It's not a cryptocurrency startup. It's a cryptocurrency. It's decentralized, and it's outside of the traditional system. So it can't be compared to other ICOs and cryptocurrency projects, because that's not what it is. Now, they continue to say the internet outfits, including Facebook, Telegram, and Signal, are planning to roll out new cryptocurrencies over the next year that are meant to allow users to send money to contacts on their messaging systems, like a Venmo or PayPal that can move across international borders. Boom. That's where you got it right there. What is Facebook trying to accomplish? Are they trying to establish a new currency outside of the dollar or fiat currency system? Because we know it's going to be tied to three different fiat currencies. So are they creating an asset that has value outside of the debt-based fiat system? No, they are not. What they are doing is they're integrating their technology with the digital dollar. That's what they're doing. So if you see a post on Facebook or Instagram, somebody's on a cruise, they're in Jamaica, they're at a port, you see a really nice t-shirt behind them, well, you can just send 15 Facebook coin to them and say, hey, here's 15 Facebook coin. Can you buy me that shirt? I loved it. I always wanted one. And they can go, sure, yeah, no problem. And then they get home and they give it to you. And you can transfer that value, the value of the digital dollar, through their applications like Instagram, Messenger, and so on. However, if the value of the fiat dollar falls, then because it is a stable coin, because it is a coin that is most likely to be a fiat pegged stablecoin tied to the value of 3 different national fiat currencies rather than just one, then if the value of those currencies fall, or if the purchasing power of those currencies becomes less, well, the value of the Facebook coin becomes less, and the purchasing power of the Facebook coin becomes less because it's a stable coin. It's not its own asset. It's tied to another asset. Just like there's cryptocurrencies that for each coin that exists, there's 1 ounce of gold kept in a vault. And for every ounce of gold that's kept in the vault, there's a cryptocurrency coin that's tied to that real world asset. And guess what? When the value of that gold goes up, then the value of that token goes up because it's tied to that asset, and the value is derived. It is a derivative. It's derived from that product, and that's where the value comes from. Well, the value of Facebook coin and the value of these other coins is derived from fiat currencies. And we know from the Cryptonomics report and from other CIA News Now's videos that the problem is the fiat currency system. It's the debt-based system that the bankers, specifically the central bankers, have allowed to grow to such preposterous levels. And when that system resets, when people want their money back, when there's going to be a huge purchasing power crisis or inflationary period where dollars or Facebook coins or whatever is based on that fiat currency, it's not going to be able to be used as a form of exchange. Because when you go into hyperinflation, which is just inflation at a faster rate, let's say we entered into inflation right now, and then it turned into hyperinflation. Well, by Christmas, the dollar menu at McDonald's would be the $10 menu. And then by the following Christmas, it would be the $25 menu. And by the following Christmas, McDonald's would no longer accept Federal Reserve notes because they wouldn't be viable mean of exchange because it would cost $2,500 for a small fry. Who's got $2,500 for a small fry? And this is not far-fetched. You go look at Venezuela, Zimbabwe. Go look in Germany, where any fiat currency has crashed before. You can go and see what happens when you go into hyperinflation. In Germany, people had wheelbarrows full of paper money just to buy a loaf of bread. So you're going to need wheelbarrows, digital wheelbarrows of Facebook coin to buy whatever you want. This is not a monetary asset outside of the banking system. This is just a digital dollar that is being integrated into Facebook's technology. And instead of Facebook opening up and say, here's our technology, we open sourced our technology, anybody can use it, create what you want to interact with our systems. No, they're not doing that. They're saying, well, we're going to create a digital coin and tie it to the dollar so that we can try to monetize and make money off of our customers. That's what they're doing. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin Cash and EOS, they are coming to the table and saying, we are not tied to the dollar. We are not tied to the banks. We are an asset that is outside of that system. And now what we see is that the banking system is starting to integrate the cryptocurrency into law, because it's with law that they're going to be able to control this. And we see this throughout all of the world. Take a look at some of these articles as we go through this quickly to demonstrate that this is a worldwide movement. This is happening on a worldwide scale. This is not localized in the United States. This is not even localized in first world countries. From first world, second world to third world, we see the emergence of this digital asset class, a class of assets that is outside the traditional banking system, as people lose trust and faith in the system because they're beginning to see that the massive levels of debt are simply unsustainable, and that the social programs and handouts and entitlements are unsustainable. And now, with that coming to light, the world is preparing for a new system, whether it wants to or not. It's being prepared for this new digital control system, which, like we always say, at first, it will empower the people. In the short to medium term, it's going to be freedom of finance and freedom from the debt-based system and escape from the value loss and a benefit of value creation as the shift from the old system to the new system takes place. However, For the captain who chooses to sink with his ship, he's going to sink and die with the ship. And that's what's going to happen to people who bet on fiat currencies and who bet on the debt-based system, and maybe not even bet on it. They just unknowingly, their life savings is in the system. They don't have anything outside of that system. God forbid that we see this come to fruition and they're not prepared, then they will lose everything. And now we see the whole world preparing for it. Here we see Russian President Putin orders government to adopt crypto regulation by July 2019. Russian President Vladimir Putin has issued another deadline for the government to adopt regulations for the digital assets industry, according to instructions for the Federal Assembly. According to the document, President Putin has ordered the government to enforce crypto-related regulation by July 1st, 2019. The president has required the Council of Federation of Russia and the lower house, the Federal Assembly of Russia, Russian State Duma, to adopt the regulation during the spring session of 2019. Specifically, the document requires the adoption of federal legislation that aims to develop the digital economy, including regulation of civil law digital settlements. The legislation should also include a regulatory framework for digital financial assets, as well as attract greater financial resources based on digital technologies, the document says. So we see Russia moving ahead at full speed, and not only are they applying digital currency and blockchain to the financial system, but we see in the next article that Moscow government plans to use blockchain tech in e-voting for parliamentary election. We see that the Moscow City Duma, a local parliament of the Russian city capital, plans to protect the process and results of electronic voting in the upcoming elections through the use of blockchain technology. The news was announced by one of the authors of the relevant bill, the deputy of ruling party United Russia, Dmitry Vyakin. Vyakin underlined that the technology would allow for the separate storage of the personal data of voters and the results of voting, adding, quote, "It will be impossible to connect them. This is exactly how blockchain technology works." He also stressed that it would help to avoid electoral fraud, which the deputy called dirty electoral technologies. Not too long ago, I was having a conversation with somebody, and they asked me, if you had 5 minutes with President Trump, what would you talk about? And it was a really hard question. I had to think about it for a minute. But what I said was, I would say, Mr. President Trump, thank you for everything that you're doing, but there's a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. First off, and I know you already know this because you come out and you speak against the Federal Reserve and you say what they're doing is wrong and that their policies are manipulative and that they need to be audited and other things like that. You haven't quite done that yet, but you know that that needs to be done. That is the number one problem in our country. Our government doesn't have control of our currency. However, with that being said, I'd like to bring to your attention, Mr. President, that blockchain technology, as it stands right now, we can use blockchain technology to solve the second biggest problem in the United States of America. We can solve voter fraud with blockchain technology. And I guess at this point I'd have to add, just like the Russians are doing. Because what we know for a fact, which is provable by documented evidence, is that dead people are voting, illegal aliens are voting, some of these people are voting 2, 3, even 4 times. And this has all been documented. This is not a conspiracy theory. This may be happening. There's documents that show that this is happening. And what that does is, just like when someone makes counterfeit money, it devalues the existing money in the system, or when the Federal Reserve prints more money and increases the supply, it devalues the existing supply. That's applicable to voting as well. When an illegal comes and votes, then that devalues the value of my vote. When an illegal comes and votes, or a person tries to vote for a dead person, or a person votes 2, 3, even 4 times, that devalues the value of my vote and of your vote and of everybody else who cast a legitimate vote. The voting system in the United States is broken, and we're supposed to be the republic. We're supposed to be the shining example of freedom and democracy to the world, and our voting system is broken. Mr. President, please look at using blockchain to upgrade our voting system, to empower our people, and to guarantee that our vote actually counts. And we see here, now Russia is moving forward and applying blockchain technology, not only to financial services and to financial assets like their president has ordered them to, but also to voting, which is empowering their people, and definitely a message that the government would want to send to its people. We want your vote to count. We want to listen to your voice, and this is the best way to do it. And now we see them moving ahead with that. And this is happening all over the world. Leaders, countries all over the world are now starting to say, hey, blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, some of them even hinting towards the fact that Bitcoin, or implying that, Bitcoin is the future, that this, a new system is coming. We are now starting to see the narrative that we've been saying for 3.5 years is now starting to hit the mainstream headlines. We see Macron right here, the puppet that he is, ex-Rothschild banker, and now French president. And we know France is dealing with the yellow vest protests. He's one radical statement away from the people running in there and hanging him from a tree. I mean, he is on very thin ice. And we see in this article, he comes out and says that blockchain could put Europe at vanguard of innovation. French President Emmanuel Macron has called for increased use of data technologies such as blockchain in the EU to boost the agricultural industry and address concerns over food traceability. Again, IBM heavily involved in this process. Inaugurating the 56th International Agricultural Fair in Paris at the weekend, he had this to say: "Let's do this in Europe. Be at the vanguard of agricultural data by developing tools that will track every product from raw material production to packaging and processing." So we see it coming from Russia. We see it coming from France. In the next article, we see that the Thai SEC added 3 cryptos to list of crypto assets suitable for ICOs and trading. The Thai Securities and Exchange Commission has updated the list of cryptocurrencies suitable for use in initial coin offering investments and trading pairs. Until now, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, and Stellar could be used for the purposes mentioned above when complying with regulation in Thailand. In this statement, the Commission informs the public that Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum Classic, and Litecoin have been added to the list. Lastly, the statement also specifies that the presence of any given crypto asset in the list does not render it a legal tender. So what do we see here? We see progress. You're not going to go from 0 to 100. You're not going to go from mission started to mission accomplished in one step. Not when you're working with governments and you're working on a worldwide scale. You're going to see slow integration. You're going to see slow litigation. And then eventually you're going to see slow adoption. I don't think you're even going to see, adoption just go forward at an extremely exponential pace. It's something that's going to be a slow grinding pace that happens over time. And as we go through each cycle, like we talk about in the Cryptonomics report, as we are going through these cycles, when you're at the top of these cycles, that's when you're going to have the mainstream interests. And when you're at the bottom of these cycles, that's when you're going to have only interest from people who are paying attention. And it pays off to pay attention. Let me show you why. Because we saw that in this thing where Bitcoin failed. Well, is Bitcoin a failure? The New York Times says, where Bitcoin failed. Let's just take a look real quick at some of this data. The Bitcoin lows by year and the Bitcoin highs by year. If you bought $10,000 worth of Bitcoin in 2012 at a $4 low, you would have 2,500 Bitcoin. If you did nothing to that Bitcoin and you decided to sell it at the low point in 2018 at about $3,200, you would have turned $10,000 into $8 million. Can you think of any other market that's a potential outcome? Well, now let's say you understood the cyclical process of Bitcoin and the coded cryptonomics of Bitcoin, and you invested that $10,000. You got those same 2,500 Bitcoin. If you sold those Bitcoin at the top of the market in 2017, and let's not even say at 19,600. Let's just say you sold it at 15,000 because nobody can pick the bottom and nobody can pick the top. But if you sold those 2,500 Bitcoin at 15,000, $10,000 investment turned into $37.5 million. Where else, in what market could $10,000 in 6 years turn into $37 million? That doesn't happen in any other market, which is why this is such an important event happening right now. These cycles we're only going into the third cycle, and we're starting to see that this is starting to take the world by storm. Russia is starting to make room for it, not only in financial services, but in voting. The French are starting to make room for it, not only in the financial services and voting, but also in the agricultural industry. Thailand is adding cryptocurrencies for their approved list for the Thai SEC. And last but not least, we see here in that the U.S. state moves to exempt some blockchain tokens from security rules. So we see states like Wyoming and Arizona passing blockchain-friendly laws for cryptocurrencies to start to emerge. We also see some states and projects trying to meet the existing laws because they believe, hey, sometimes it's easier to just conform to existing laws than it is to have all new laws legislated for your specific product. And we see here that lawmakers in the U.S. state of Rhode Island are seeking to exempt blockchain tokens from security laws for some use cases. 5 Democrat-Republican senators jointly filed House Bill 5595 on Wednesday, proposing that the Rhode Island Uniform Securities Act should be amended to state that developers or sellers of open blockchain tokens are not deemed as issuers of securities and are exempt from the act. The exemption, however, should be provided under certain conditions, the lawmakers said. First, the purpose of a token should be for a consumptive purpose and only be exchangeable for or provided for the receipt of goods, services, or content, including rights of access to goods, services, or content. Secondly, the developers or sellers of a token should not sell it to the initial buyers as a financial investment, they said, adding, if the token does not have a consumptive purpose available at the time of sale, the initial buyer of the token is prevented from reselling the token until the token is available for the use for a consumptive purpose. So we see that not only are U.S. states making laws to attract cryptocurrency projects, but also they're making changes and amendments to existing litigation to allow for these new assets to be legally used or legally invested in, with a few stipulations here or there, because they're right, it is easier to conform to existing law rather than have whole new laws lobbied for and legislated to conform to your system or your product. And now we see that taking place here within the United States. And a great example of that is this article here. Polymath tests show security tokens can be compliant on a DEX, or a decentralized exchange. Security token platform Polymath has teamed up with Loopring to trial peer-to-peer trading of security tokens on a decentralized exchange. Revealing the news exclusively to CoinDesk on Wednesday, Polymath said that the successful tests, which used smart contracts on Loopring's DEX protocol, demonstrated that only authorized trades of ST20 security tokens were able to execute, while unauthorized trades could not. The ST20 security token standard created by Polymath is an extension of the more generalized ERC 1400 standard that introduces the ability to restrict transfers of blockchain tokens. They can only be held and traded if certain criteria are met, Polymath said. What we are showcasing here is that decentralized exchanges and security token issuers have the ability to maintain compliance through the standardized protocols that Polymath and others have built. And in fact, security tokens make it easier for issuers to follow regulations when compared with the legacy capital market systems using paper share certificates. So they say, hey, we can conform to the existing laws with our business model. We have the ability to maintain compliance. And not only that, our system makes it easier for issuers to follow regulation, especially when compared to the article we went over the other day, the 30 global central security depositories in exploring crypto custody. Let's just review what they said. A whole new world of tokenized assets and blockchain is coming. Here it is right here. It's Polymath. It's digital assets. It's tokenized assets. It's blockchain as the source of technology and security to protect the data. That's what's happening right now. They said it right here in their quote. A whole new world of tokenized assets and blockchain is coming. It will disrupt our role as CSD. What does it do? Polymath says it right here. It makes it easier for issuers to follow regulations when compared with the legacy capital market system. What is the legacy capital market system? It's these 30 global central security depositories who are now in panic mode and trying to prepare. They said the whole group decided we will be focusing on tokenized assets, not just blockchain, but on real digital assets. because that is the future, and that's what we see happening right now. And what they thought was, oh, they cannot conform to the law. Oh, they're going to have to wait for the law. They're going to have to go through the same lobbying process. It'll be years before this is on us. Now they're in panicking mode because they know that they have the ability to maintain compliance with this existing technology, and that their business model is not relevant when compared to the new blockchain technology and assets that are digitized and being able to be managed centrally and securely in a network that is able to maintain compliance. And finally, in our last article, an extremely important article, we see that millennial investors want crypto to be easier. Millennial investors are significantly more interested than older generations in placing value into virtual currencies, according to new survey data. But high barriers to entry mean that actual investment remains weak. For Matty Greenspan, the senior market analyst at eToro, this comes as no surprise. Speaking to Crypto Briefing, he highlighted that every generation had its own preferred asset class. A digital asset has more appeal for a generation shaped by advances in technology. The biggest takeaway from Self-Lender survey is that demand for cryptocurrencies is outstripping actual ownership. When the survey organizers asked similar questions about traditional assets, they found that demand was lower than actual ownership. In the case of real estate, for example, 64% of those surveyed already own property, but only 48.6% actually prefer it above all other asset classes. That's a minus 25% disparity. But crypto has a much higher barrier of entry. It's conceptually hard to understand, with few precedents to smooth out the learning curve. The lack of available knowledge and amount of jargon involved makes entering the market an overwhelming experience. So what do we see here? We see the results of the spoon-fed millennial generation, which I am a part of, and I'm just recently, over the past 5-6 years, actually awake and aware that I have to live life and love life and pursue happiness, that it's not just all given to you. You have to go out, you have to work hard, you have to earn it, and it's not easy. What's the whole saying? Nothing good comes easy. Well, being involved in cryptocurrency, it takes time, it takes money, it takes energy, it takes trust. And millennials, they can't just trust these traditional institutions. They can't trust the banks to handle their money. They need to embrace the empowerment that comes with the freedom of finance that we see from this decentralized network that's outside the traditional banking system. But we also need to be aware that if we let them come in with the law and take control of this system, they can eventually use it as a control system. They can use it to gain three of the biggest things that they are missing in their traditional system when it comes to controlling the masses. They are going to tackle their three biggest enemies while simultaneously making the people that they control with their system cry out for a new system that gives the same people who control with the traditional system even more power and control with the digital control system, all for the ease of convenience and the ease of use, rather than someone out rolling up the sleeves, getting those hands dirty, putting in the time, putting in the energy, putting in the hard work. And guess what? We understand here at CIA that not everybody has time for that. But that's why we're here. We're here to rip apart the news, tear down the headlines, bring the hard-hitting and in-your-face truth to you so that you don't have to sit back and worry. You know that you can be of one mind, one spirit, one worldview, one perspective, looking at the market, understanding where it's going, why it's going there, and how you need to position yourself to protect yourself and your family as we prepare to go through the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of humanity. Thank you for joining us at CIA News Analysis, and thank you for your support.